Okay, so I guess this, I'll start. I guess this is a kind of representation panel and how to prepare yourself for representation.
Is this the writing one?
What's that?
This is the writing one.
Are any directors here, or is this all writers? Writers and directors, right? Okay.
Kind of half and half.
And then what about folks who write for TV and features? So mix. Okay.
All right, cool. Well, hey, today, Alex, Krish, I think I've seen some of your faces so far. We are both lit managers. I work at Pathfinder Media in Los Angeles.
Yep, same thing. Literary manager, Zero Gravity Management in LA. We have offices in LA, New York, and London.
Mm-hmm. So what we're talking about today, that Eric just noted as well, is what you need as a writer, just on the writing portion of it or writing track, before getting out there. What are the things that you need in your arsenal? And us as literary managers and producers as well, there's things that we always help out the writer with, and the things that they're going to need to have in their arsenal. But to kind of start it off with, before you just start writing, like what's the things I need in my backpack? The biggest thing that we always look for out of writers as well and tell them is, obviously whenever everyone sees, they go to their AMC movie theaters and they see big action movies and everything, and those are great too. And if that's what you love, do that. But write what you're passionate about. You're an artist, you're a poet, you're trying to express something in any type of genre way. So write what you're passionate about, and then figure it out from there. What your path is in either TV or film.
And also I just want to talk about the importance of representation too, because we are the facilitators in Hollywood and a lot of places around the world. You can't get your projects read by big time producers, actors, financiers, studios, unless you have people like us. We're the ones that give it to them. They'll probably just not accept it from you. So my job is to take what you have, hopefully try and make it as sellable as possible, and then we go out and we're the ones that kind of try and get you your jobs or make your movies, right? So it's almost impossible to do so without representation. Representation can be a manager, we are, an agent. This, for our purposes here, we're going to talk about what you need to get representation, and then there's going to be a later panel that I'm on as well. I think after this, that is going to be kind of the differences between manager and agent, and
how to actually get
and
to
actually
us.
How to go after that and get it. That's right. So whether you're a writer or a director, it's okay. So this is how to what you need in your back pocket to do so. So I think you have some features.
So let's kick it off with the feature side first of it all. I'd say usually once we start talking to writers, it's best to have at least 2 scripts in your arsenal to start off with. And again, write where write where you love as well. And if just the writing path, and even if you're a writer-director as well, I suggest having that indie, that low-budget film that is going to be kind of like your first thing to try to get off the ground. And then you probably want to have at least a studio-level piece as well. Now, if you're not on the directing track and you're just wanting to do writing, you should have then just probably 2 good pieces that are sticking somewhat in the same genre as well.
Yeah. So I used to sign people off of 1 script. I would read a script. If I loved the script, I would say, I want to sign this person because they can really write. What I kind of learned over the years is that I had no idea, 1, how long it took them to write that script. I mean, it could have taken them 10 years to write it. I have no idea if they had 1,000 people help them along the way. I just didn't know. And I found sometimes when I'd sign someone off a script and we said, okay, let's start developing the next script. It just wasn't as good. And I couldn't figure out why it wasn't as good. And I came up with those reasons. So I want to have 2 things. So I say, okay, you know what? I trust this writer can pull it off again, because what representation isn't just what's about this particular project. Representation, especially a manager, is about a long-term plan where we say, you look at your writing and we say, you know what? I want to work with this writer for 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, and you want to be, work at it over a career. And that's more what we do as representatives. It's all about what's the long term on a career, not just what's about this project. And that's why we like to have a couple things in your back pocket. So we say, okay, you know what, I think this person can continue to write at this high level. So, for me personally, I'll just tell you what I like. Sometimes I don't even care about the concept of a script. I care about how, just the writing itself, because I can always help with story. I can always help with a concept. Where people like us have trouble, you can't help with someone's voice. I know when we say, oh, it's someone's voice, it's that unique characteristic. That's kind of
it's different.
It's kind of like just a vague term, but that's like the special sauce, right? That you look at and say, oh, what is it about this script that it just keeps me turning page after page? And again, it might not be the greatest concept, but if it's, if the writing is really good, and to me it comes down to characters and dialogue. Really, that's what I look for, characters and dialogue. And if you have great characters and great dialogue, and I really know that you can write that, I can help you with your concept, or we can choose a different concept, right? Yeah. But I want to make sure in both, minimum 2, 3, 4 scripts that you can continue to pull off that great character and dialogue, and that's what it really that I look for.
Yeah, because once you have that great character and dialogue to us as representatives, and again, like Eric said, in the next panel we'll talk more about that. We want to know if, you only have one good script so far, but you have another great idea. This is kind of like our trial together of let's see if we can build a relationship. And before we get you out there and start to talk to more producers, studio executives, let's see if we can develop, do you understand what I'm trying to translate to you to get back to us onto script form?
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point.
Listening
is collaboration is very key. I mean, this is such a collaborative business, and I want to know that I can, if you write a script and I give you some notes, that you want to take those notes, and you don't have to take every single one of them, but it starts a dialogue and a discussion, and you're open to taking notes and open to working together, with me to try and figure out what the best path for the script is. So the collaboration process is very, very key. We always look for people that are very collaborative on that. I want to give one quick anecdote. This kind of speaking to what I was just talking about is I read a script. Now it's about 9 or 10 years ago. I thought the concept was not good at all. The structure was a mess. I thought it was a completely unmakeable movie. Yet the characters and dialogue were so good. I kind of laughed through the first half of the script, cried through the second half, and it stayed with me for about 3 days. And I said, you know what? I can't do anything with this screenplay, but I love this writer. And it comes down to, I want to work with this writer. So I said, I want to find him another idea. So my brother, who's my business partner, he had an idea, and he said, I'm calling this idea The Accountant. Let's give this to this writer. We gave that idea to that writer. It was his second ever screenplay, and it was called The Accountant, and it was made 2 years ago with Ben Affleck and made almost $200 million. So,
gross that much. That's great.
Yeah, made for $40 million.
It's awesome for a butt, yeah.
And it's all about but positioning yourself to get the representation and work with a representative. What do you need, right? So it's what do you need when when you are kind of going after us and trying to say, oh, here's what I have, here's who I am. How do you set yourself apart?
Yeah. It's that strong script, and then we can get onto that next thing too. But another anecdote as well, and sometimes we'll tell a writer, I'm like, listen, this script, it's we're not going to be able to sell it because maybe there's something too similar out in the field, or there's just a lot of reasons, but we definitely see that there's something here. Let's continue to keep trying to work together because we can tell there's a gem there in your writing. But the next thing, say you have your 2 features or one, that you want to have your log line, short synopsis already written down. And then you might need to have a small pitch packet, but that's only if you're really on the directing path. And then you probably want to have, on the feature side, maybe 4 or 5 other ideas, maybe a couple pieces of IP that you, or fact-based things that you've been looking at, because then that really shows that hey, I'm constantly trying to think of new ideas and stuff like that too, because if we assign you as well, and if you're a writer that's starting to go out in what they call general meetings, you want to have a lot of ideas in your back pocket. A great example, another writer I signed, we were going out with something we knew we couldn't sell, but we knew it was a great script though. And she had this one idea, and it was like, oh, it's about this lady in the 1970s, and she was kind of a homemaker and overweight, and then she became she started this thing called Weight Watchers and became super famous and stuff, and that got really popular at a general meeting. And Amy Pascal was like, I really like this, and I liked your writing a lot. I'd really love to produce this movie and try to get you the funding for it. And sure enough, because she had that idea, and then of course, that producer was strong enough to be able to get the life rights, that happened. So it's good to have ideas too, a few ideas.
Yeah, because one thing that I want to make sure is that you can constantly generate. I think a lot of people don't tend to do that. They have their one project and they run around their one script and say, "This is what I want to do." And again, I think when I'm talking about representation, I keep going back to, I want it over a career. I want it over 5 years, 10 years. I don't want just the one project, right? And so if you can constantly generate and then prove to me that you say, oh, you know what? I've got, not only this script, I've got another script, and I've got these 4 ideas. And I say, okay, you know what? I can map out the next 2 years of your life, and then that's really important to me. You need to be able to generate. It's very frustrating to me when someone writes one script, and then we go out with that script, and then they don't have another one for a year or two. And I almost forget about the person, but the readers out there, the people you send it to, forget about that person too. So I think it's really important to have a lot of that in your arsenal, and constantly be generating, constantly be writing. I always tell writers, if you want to make it in professional football, you practice every day, right? I mean, and if you're a writer, practice every day, and I think it's really important to constantly do that. Yeah. Because your competition is.
Yeah, your competition is. I mean, from the best to the best down to the emerging, they're just always trying to think like, what's the new idea? Well, I know it's going to probably take 10. The ones that are aware, situationally aware, they know it's not going to take just one try. They know they're going to have to keep in the ring and keep going at it eventually, because it's a lot of drafts to make something great. And it's also a lot of tries to make something great in any field, so especially writing as well.
And the one thing I want to touch on that you mentioned, though, I am a believer in kind of branding yourself.
Yeah.
And I think this thought has changed for me a little bit over time, because I think great writers, they can probably write just about anything. That said, it's so competitive and it's so saturated that you kind of have to figure out how you're going to break in, right? And figure out what you're best at. And as you say, I'm best at writing action movies. Brand yourself as an action writer, right? And just, those are your 2 scripts. Those are what your ideas are. Once you break in, then you can go out and do anything you want, all right? But if you're going to break in, figure out exactly, what you want to do, what you're best at, and have samples in that same arena. Because part of that goes to, if I'm sending out scripts to people and they like it, but they don't hire you or they don't buy it, I want to then go back to that person in a month or 2 or 6 months later with a similar script. If you have a very different script, I'm probably not going to that executive. I'm going to a comedy executive. There are different executives for different types of projects, and so I want to keep hitting the same executives over and over and over with your projects. So that's kind of that's the idea of brand yourself, break out later, but really brand yourself in the beginning.
Yeah, because. And it's okay when you're first starting off, you don't have a big, heavy bio or credits to really show off yet. You've got that one maybe great script and some ideas. So you want to be a defined brand. That they're like, man, I really like the script though. Oh, they seem to have a very defined brand in their bio. So getting into that as well that helps is we all make log lines for our scripts, right? Well, why aren't you making a log line for yourself as well? Because once you start doing that on the branding side and you create a very sharp, defined log line of like, yeah, you want to be an action writer, but what kind of action writer? Like what in this Crayola box just makes you different from the other person right beside you that also wants that job? That's just like, God, I can't get that out of my mind. So for instance, an anecdote of a writer that I found out of Atlanta years ago, and he's doing very well now. He was kind of the one that made me really start thinking about it, because he just wrote, I love sci-fi, and I studied physics, and I use sci-fi to embrace the human element and experience. And I was like, can't forget that. That's great. So do that in your own way as well, and that really will help you brand. And also think when you're trying to stay on track with your genre that you're writing as well. Like, am I kind of staying on my brand? I mean, thinking about it, like if you're creating like a certain type of soda, and then all of a sudden your next product that you're coming out with is so different, and it didn't, merge its way. Everyone's going to get kind of confused, like, well, are you going to be good enough from soda to like making cars? Like, oof, I don't know yet. So you need to think about that as well. Does that make sense, everyone? Cool. So we talked a little bit about features. Should we get into TV?
Yeah, and real quick, just to button on that features, I want to see a log line, a very, really spend time on your log lines. And I think, by the way, at the end of this, we're going to spend a little bit of time hearing a couple pitches if you guys want. So we'll leave some time for that. We're going to have some questions, and then we'll hear some pitches too. So what I need, I want a log line. Spend time on that. Make sure it's great, because I get probably 100 script submissions a week, and so we can't read all. I mean, I can't read all that. We try and read as many as we can, but the log line kind of separates it, and so it's a log line. In a log line, I like to see a concise sentence. I like to see in the vein of, or this movie meets this movie. And that's not necessarily story or concept. I want to know the tone, really.
Yeah, it helps us to kind of define a little bit more.
Yeah, because you could be thinking really broad comedy, but I'm thinking really smart, elevated comedy, and that kind of separates it. So I think, say in the vein of, this movie. And then I like to see a brief synopsis of what the movie is. But I also really like to see a little bio on each person. I want to know, what their background is. I want to know if they've won a contest. I want to know if they've placed in a contest. I want to know just kind of a little bit about that person, because it's not only about a project. It's about working with another person. It's working about it's having a relationship, hopefully for 10 years. And so I want to know not only about the project. I want to know about you. So I think that's really, really important. So you really want to make sure that you're specific about the project, specific about yourself as well, and what sets you apart from everybody else, those 100 other requests a week that I get, right? So I think that's important. That's really important. So so that's, I guess, in the kind of the feature space, you're coming with that, and obviously you have your feature. And I guess TV. You want to talk about what you need for to write for TV?
Listen, TV's been blown up over the last 15 years or so, that it's just really the new big medium, especially for emerging artists. They all want to get into scripted because there's so many new outlets, which is great. So to get into that, still sticking with the same fundamentals and branding that we spoke about, but here's some of the things that you're going to need to have if you are going on the TV path. Again, probably 2 pilots if you can. Nobody reads spec scripts, and a lot of people aren't allowed to.
Do you guys know what spec scripts are?
Yeah.
A speculative
like
of a existing show. That used to be the hot thing where I'm just going to write my episode of Seinfeld, right? But people don't read those anymore. They want to see originals. They want to see your original voice. Yeah. So don't do a spec pilot.
You can start off on your own when you're trying to craft your idea, but don't send it out. So maybe 1 to 2 original pilot scripts. Again, a log line and a synopsis. And then most of the time, and especially nowadays, if no one really knows who you are yet, you're going to want to have a small pitch packet / Bible. I say / Bible because a real Bible is very in-depth, and sometimes you don't want to go out that just yet. So you want to have a bit of a visual presentation, but because it's a TV is different from features, as we all know, and we're talking about long seasons and 8 to 10 episodes the first season. So you want to break that down. So do you want to talk a little bit more about that before, or just
about
TV job before I get into the breakdown?
What's the breakdown?
Just of the pitch packet.
Oh, what that's going to entail?
Probably.
Right. I think also in TV it's really important. This is very reductive, but in a way, features are all about what's on that 110 pages, and that's your sales tool. That's what you have, right? In TV, it's not about necessarily what's your pilot. It's what's the series, not what's your pilot. What's the series? And it's really hard to convey that in a pilot. That's just your starting point. And it's almost in TV. It's easy to write a pilot, 60 pages, right, or 30 pages depending on if you're writing a half hour. So, but how do you convey what's the series? And so I think the Bible is just it's such an important thing, but
sometimes even actually the bigger portion of it, because you need to know that really the pilot is always just the springboard into it. And a lot of times, the big professional writers, a lot of times they're like, I know I need to do the pilot, but that's not even my favorite episode. It's going to be episode 3, but you've got to figure out a way to get to that. So you got to be thinking about the longevity. And nowadays too, people want to know what the character, where you probably see that character or character's voyage can be at the very end. Now, if it's a sitcom or TV, that's a little different.
You need to know a lot about your series. It's hard to write for TV. It's you actually. I think it's actually maybe even harder to write for TV than features, just because it's a lot of work. You have to know what's going on in 5 seasons. Now, we all know that if a show sells, there's a writer's room and all that, and they're going to figure out the story. But people want to know that you have a general idea of where it's going. So what's happening in season 1, what's happening in season 2, what's happening in season 3. It can get a little more vague by the end because again things can change. But have a vision for it. And I think in television, it's really important that you. Write from some sort of experience, or why the personal connection for this thing, and the answer can't anymore be because it's cool. It's just you have to have a connection to it, because if you don't have credits, you don't have a long list of working in TV, then the executive's going to say, well, why are you the perfect person to write this show? And again, the answer can't be, well, it's because it's a really cool idea. It's separate yourself. Say, oh, because this happened in my family, or it's a law show because I'm a lawyer, or and so write what's personal to you as well. I get that all the time. Of why are you the perfect person to write this television show? Small anecdote, we're the creators of a show called Ozark. Ozark takes place in the Ozarks of Missouri. My client grew up in the Ozarks of Missouri. So I said, let's figure out a show around the Ozarks of Missouri. So it's a very personal thing, right? And I think that's really important in TV. Less so, I think, in features, because it's all about what's there, but in TV.
Yeah.
So
because you're the creator, so everyone, even if you're not the showrunner at the beginning, especially at your starting stage, you're still the person that everyone is going to. You're the librarian of this whole season and the tastemaker. Just like in features, you don't necessarily, and I say this loosely, once you've written the script, need to be the exact person like a showrunner for it, because the director is taking that path of why they're the best person for it, because then it's laid on their hands once you give them the script, or the studio does. So yeah, it's really good to have that backstory of why, that connection.
So do you want to talk about what you need in a Bible?
Yeah, so in a Bible, and this is just the basic Bible of it all, and I'll try to say this slowly. We can do this together. So one, you're going to want to make it a little visual if you can. You don't need to go crazy, and we can show some examples maybe a little later too, but a title page with a log line or maybe a tagline. Then the next page should be a synopsis, and just jump in where we are. Should be like a synopsis, just the short overview of what this TV series is about. And probably even more so about the series, you really want to be talking about that main character or character group. And then, like Eric was saying, the backstory and the setting. Like if it was Ozark, you're kind of really talking about the location and how it's its own character as well. Because they're like, the Ozark was in Missouri. Did you know that actually like so many such and such crimes or something here because of the landscape as well? It's hard to find things like, oh, okay, I'm starting to like build in my head what I think the series is going to be, and I haven't even gotten halfway down the packet yet. And then you're going to want to start with, I was going to say that with the backstory, it's kind of the personal connection or the why now. Another thing with like, let's say Girls, if everyone remembers that. Her thing was like, I want to be the voice of this new millennial age, and something needs to be talked about it, that's why.
Why now is actually an underrated thing. It's very important, why now. By the way, if you ever write a period piece, something that doesn't take place now, that's a question we have to answer all the time. Well, this happened in the 50s. Why now?
It's happening kind of now again. It's like we need to show everyone that like you need to be making a message like, well, listen, yes, that happened in the 50s, but can you tell like with the politics or the world, today. Like it's happening all over again. We need to be using our art form to show people and to create a conversation. So it's even in comedy too, you'll find it. And then you're starting to break down into your characters. That should be a couple pages. You probably, for your lead characters or your lead character, you probably want to give them a half a page to a page, really break down who they are and where you kind of see their voyage going. Think of like Walter White from Breaking Bad. And if you were to pitch that guy, And then you get into your supporting characters, and you don't really want to get into all your minor characters.
Yeah.
That gets a little too.
Don't get too into the weeds with the minor characters, but also talk about character interactions. So
yeah.
describe your characters, but then also kind of how they interact with one another, and that's your leads, not
the way you set up. Literally, the way you write them up, like the main character, and then maybe if there's like the wife or husband, then son, and then like maybe the neighbor, coworker, because you're creating this kind of chain of interactions that you'll start seeing and you're slowly presenting to your reader. And again, once you get into the real Bible that a studio would have you commission you to do, then you're doing a much more in-depth detail on character interactions, because that breaks into the full seasons or season. And that brings me actually into season 1. Usually, most of the time, people want to see, from the pilot to, let's say, 10 to 12 episodes. Where do you see it going if it's episodic? Or serialized, I should say. Sorry. Do you want to?
Yeah, and on that, obviously season 1 is going to be the most important you focus on, because like we said, if you sell a show, you get in a writer's room, things are going to change. But season 1 you want to have pretty worked out, and I think it is pretty important to you want to know. Where the character starts, obviously in the pilot, and where the characters are going to end at the end of season 1. And I really like to have a marker of somewhere in the middle, right? Where if we're talking structure of a feature film, there's usually a midpoint beat where there's something that happens that kind of flips the story on its head and it drives it through the second half, right? Mm-hmm. Same thing with a television series. You want to have that, some midpoint marker in the first season. So that's if it's a 10 episode show you're creating, you want to have around episode 5-ish to have some sort of marker to say, whoa, this is going to happen. So have a couple markers in there when you're talking about your series of big events, structural events that are going to kind of change the series. So I think that's really important in season 1. And then season 2, you can be a little more vague. You still need to know where it's going to pick up and where it's going to leave off. But
and that's more the future seasons.
Yeah, and then season 3 again more vague again. 4 and 5 actually, who cares? But but you should be so lucky to get something on for 3 seasons, right? So that can be a little more vague. For sure. And then
again, and sometimes it kind of varies where to put it, so you can please step in, but theme, the why, what's the tone, what's the big moral throughout the whole journey that's always in the back. The big thing that all really good showrunners, since I was in college till now, still state, is what's the theme that I'm always trying to sell on, because a lot of times you'll be in a writer's room and you realize, God, something's not working, like it's just like, yes, the structure's there and everything, but just that element that I started off with, I can't find. And they should always be able to point back on what the major overall story theme is. And so you want to kind of talk about that in that page.
Theme, very important. Every executive will ask, what's the theme?
Yeah.
Very important.
The message. And then again, and I think nowadays people are doing it a lot more, and both genres, comedy and drama, and when it comes to genres, it's on both those sides too. But saying the visual, I like to say the visual point of view, because it's so easy to say the visual aesthetic and style, but you kind of want to say like you're setting a certain type of tone and the way that you're looking at it. I guess. Let's see, where's a relevant one? Euphoria. Has anyone seen Euphoria yet? Okay, well, maybe not enough. You want to use one? What's a little bit more relevant one?
Oh, yes. Zendaya. She's on drugs.
Yeah, Zendaya, right? And it was about, so anyways, Euphoria is about, it's a show on HBO, and it's about teenagers in the now, and they had it very stylized as well. And you kind of want to say what that POV is. And they said they wanted to make it kind of noir because they wanted to showcase in a very heavy-handed way what's going on so we could understand their human experience of the teenagers of today. Because if you're on a directing side, you don't want to get so far into it and you're talking about camera angles and stuff. That's for a pilot director to deal with. And you just want to help out the executives so they get a little bit more idea of what it is.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm. And then I guess, you're pretty much at the end. You want your bio, again, to kind of probably sum up a little bit, looping back in, the personal connection. But just really your bio. of what you've done, who you are, what are the type of things you like to write.
And again, try and be specific on who you are and your brand. You know, you're branding yourself. So just work hard on that element as well. People sometimes forget that you're not only selling your project, your piece, you're selling yourself.
Yeah. And then you can have another page if you need to probably just have your contact info, or if you have representation from manager or agent, you usually put that on there too, so people know to make sure to call us and it's just not this floating idea. I also sometimes just like a tagline at the end. Really, you're branding, you're marketing something to have that little piece, but you don't need to do it. That's what I have on that.
Okay,
Is there anything else?
I think that's it there. And then I guess we'll get into, there are some directors here too, right? Some filmmakers?
Yeah.
Okay. So what do you need as a filmmaker to approach representation?
Oh, yeah, okay, we're yeah. For a filmmaker as well, again, yes, it's the scripts. Yes, you will need to have probably as a filmmaker a couple shorts as well. At least if you have a feature, then I mean, more power to you.
Yeah, I think it's all about creating content and sharing your content, right? These days, it's getting easier and easier to go create content. You can make movies on your iPhone. There have been Sundance movies that have been shot on an iPhone.
Yeah.
Create content, right? And I think that's really important where, if you've already got a feature, great, but always continue to generate things. And my suggestion, if you want to get really noticed, is the proof of concept. I think people probably know what that is, but if someone sends me a short film that's all it can be is a short film, it's a standalone short, that's great. I want to see the talent in there. But what would be really great is if it's your proof of concept for the bigger thing that you want to go direct, right? So it's a scene, it's or a pivotal part, or something of the feature that you wrote that is going to show the aesthetic, the style, the tone of what you want to do. Proof of concepts are a little bit tricky because you want to make sure that you kind of end on a cliffhanger too, because you want to make sure that someone watches a proof of concept that could be, 6 minutes long, and that person says, "Whoa, I want to see the actual movie version of this." So I think it's really important to. I think proof of concepts are the way to go these days. So someone can look at it and say, "Oh my gosh, this is gonna, I want to see what else this person is creating based off of this," and then obviously have your script prepared of that thing. So you're coming to me and you're saying, "I've got this great proof of concept. If you like it, and it takes me 6 minutes to watch it, great. And if you like it, then read my script."
Yeah.
And so I think that's a really good way to approach representation as a filmmaker. One thing I'll talk about, I don't represent this person, but there was a really good one that went out a few years ago called Lights Out. I don't know if you end up seeing that movie, but that was, wow, it was simple. It was in 2 rooms. She turned the lights off. She saw a ghost in the back. She turned it on. It's gone. And it kept getting closer to her and closer and closer to her. And then, suddenly it's in her room. But it was creepy. It was weird. It had no production value whatsoever. But you watched that and you said, "Oh, man, I get that movie. Wow. Okay, cool." And then that sold in a giant bidding war. But he did have the script already written, and so he was able to go out and get that made. And now he's really, really hot director. So I think having a really strong proof of concept is important.
We're working with that guy soon on something too.
Was that?
Yeah, I'm trying to. I think our company's working with that guy too.
Oh, really?
On something. Yeah.
So. But yeah, it's constantly creating content because everyone's creating content, and you can upload it online, and you can start getting attention. And so
I literally
that's
found
really
a client off of Instagram. She started using her Instagram story and just started creating a full TV series off of that. And now she's doing really, really well. Again, she had great content too. And then another thing, not to go too far off, I know we were talking about directors, but another thing for writers is they want to know, what else do you have? Or what other point of views do you have? What other mediums are you using that you can bring to the table? Do you have any poetry? Are you a musician? They love those backstories. Do you write just interesting, if you're in comedy, do you, write really funny food blogs? I know this one guy, he's actually an actor and writer, and he does tons of, we all know what Yelp is. He does tons of Yelp reviews, and he keeps them all, and he puts them on his Instagram, and they're really well done. And he got staffed on the show more so on his freaking Yelp reviews than anything, because they were so well written and funny.
Yeah, and I think that's a good good reminder of just creating content. There's so many different mediums now and so many different ways to get noticed. You can get noticed from here. You can notice anywhere in the world. I have clients all around the world. You do not need to live in Los Angeles. And I hope that there's something that you take away from this conference this week, is that it's so worldwide now. I don't need you to live in LA. I need to be able to have a Skype connection maybe,
Yeah.
but to take meetings and that. But I think even 5-10 years ago, it felt very inaccessible. I'm assuming to go land on a bigger stage. It's not anymore. I have clients from around the world,
and we tell them all the time too, and we know how you feel, and we always have this consultation with them. They're like, oh, are they going to want to talk to me though? I live in this country or that country. I'm like, everyone's very internet savvy nowadays, and we can work off of your schedule and different time frame. And another thing that we always tell writers as well, if they're in different countries, like, make sure that if we're in a different time zone and it's we need you at 3 o'clock and that's 6 a.m. for you, either wake up early enough or just be no, I can't do that. I'm going to be so tired. And say can we do it a half an hour later? Let me get some coffee in my system so when I do this pitch, I look like I'm aware. So good things to know.
Yeah, and I do want to make sure that's the takeaway here too, because I tell you, I always want to find great new talent. I'm out there looking for it all the time. So it doesn't matter where you're from, what you're coming, what your situation is. I want it. And we are really, really open, and everyone in LA is really, really open to it.
Really open.
It's so hungry, and especially new voices. You want to be the person that says, "I discovered that person."
Yeah.
That's
out of Trinidad. Who would have guessed?
Amazing.
Look how well
I would love that. And so just please remember, it is more accessible than you might think. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do a few questions, and we'll do pitches later too.
Around the Trinidad, I thought we'd all like to know how we always, of course, it's like a small town, right? So we have our the way we speak, and we have our location, the Caribbean, that kind of thing. And sometimes we're always wondering how much of that to put into stuff we submit outside and how much to keep a bit under control. Where's that balance? So advice would be.
I'm sorry. Do you mean content that's specific to the region?
Content which is Caribbean,
right.
But it could become universal. So some advice.
That's 100%. That's what it is, right? It's. I think you need you probably want the flavor. You want what you guys do best, but it has to be something that's universal, something that travels. But by the way, that could be family. It doesn't have to be something that's so big, or it could just be something that I can relate to with my son that you do with yours, or whatever. So it's I think especially in this day and age, it's this is the best time in the history of cinema for diversity, and people want to discover diverse voices and new voices. So I think where you have an advantage right now is actually putting in your local flavor, right?
Yeah.
But it still has to be at a level of of universal acceptance of what that thing is, right? Another thing, this is a little bit off topic, but I would suggest is. It seems like everyone immediately goes to drama, and I think that if you want to get noticed on kind of a bigger stage, what travels a little more universally is a little more genre, and that could be a little little into thriller, a little into action, sci-fi. Comedy's a little tougher because I don't know if comedy travels as much worldwide. I think comedy is very subjective. But when I say sci-fi, you may come back to me and say, I can't write a sci-fi, I can't make a sci-fi movie here as a filmmaker. I don't have a big enough budget. Well, you can, because it doesn't have to be flying cars. Sci-fi
grounded
can just...
sci-fi is what we like to call it.
Grounded sci-fi is all people want.
And that's the new
thing.
That's all they want, because it's low
sci-fi.
budget. But a good one, and I know this is a little bit more of a studio level, and I should probably use my own movie as an example. But A Quiet Place was really good. Yes, right. they had monster, but really you didn't see that monster that often, and that was the whole thing took place basically in a house in a field.
Right,
and then you saw the monster here and there.
Right, and also
it was all sound.
Or like Ex Machina is the one that everybody talks about in Hollywood. Bring me the next Ex Machina. I don't know if you guys saw that film.
All right.
Yeah, and it's sci-fi, but It's not really,
Really, yeah.
right?
Yeah, this is an Independence Day where we're blowing up cities.
Yeah, so I think you have to be smart about what you're creating. But just to go back to your question, it is just that thing that's universal. And because I think that little bit of genre travels a little more universal, if it is so niche into kind of your society, your culture,
Right.
that might be a little trickier. But have that thing that kind of elevates it to a little more universally accepted work.
It's literally one of the examples, because we do the same thing that we like to say we're genre worldwide. That's because that's the best selling point. So it's kind of like an example we use is like when you're making like a pasta or something, you don't want it to just be a straight bland drama. You want to give a little bit of spice, that little taste. You don't need to put a whole bunch of spice into it. But that's a great example to think about, or analogy I should be saying, to when thinking about making your movie or that next feature script, even if it has a little bit of the cultural backdrop that you're part of. I mean, if it was Carnival, you're like, well, can it have like a little bit of a thriller or horror thing, like something happened in the background than just like a straight story? And then to kind of get into that as well.
I like that idea, by the way.
What's that?
A horror Carnival.
There you go. Yeah. It's we already did enough Burning Man ideas.
Sign me up. Who's writing it?
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. Out of towners come, or it's here. Yeah. Go for it. Let's brainstorm right now. But another thing too, if I know a lot of first-time filmmakers as well, or writers, if they're not on the comedy side and they just do straight drama, they always want to just go like straightforward, hard, tearjerker drama. This is sad, and here's the thing: there's already enough sad things going on. It doesn't need to be that sad.
Well, yeah, sometimes also remember that if it's entertainment, do it for entertainment purposes, right? And
people want to click off. They do want to explore it out of their mind.
There's a lot of crap going on in the world today. I don't want to then turn on the TV on Friday night and be sad.
Also, I mean, I hope it's okay to say, when I think where you guys are from, the Caribbean, I think of like, oh, this is where, at least for a lot of people that don't live in the Caribbean, this is where we go to vacation. So like, they're expecting to have that, kind of see that flavor in the background, but not to say that, getting back to it, there shouldn't be a real moral, or there shouldn't be a heavy setting thing hitting on that character that they're dealing with, their dilemma that they've got to get across. In a movie that I saw just not too long ago, and it was a first-time filmmaker who did very well for themselves now. It's called The Farewell. You seen that, Eric? Aquafina.
I tried to sign that director.
Oh, okay.
No,
Sorry.
I passed on her. I passed. She came to me like 5 times. We represent everything. And I said no, and then she makes that, and I look
She's up
stupid.
for the Oscar now.
I look stupid.
All right. Well, I'll be really quick for his sake. I think we've all been there on this side of the table. But it was that was kind of a heavy-handed idea movie. It's about this grandma that's about to die, and in their culture of Asia, which you can use as well, they don't tell their grandparents if they found out that they have a terminal illness. They just let them live out the rest of their life, and they're really happy around them. I guess that's just their thing. Now, that could have been a heavy-handed, super hard thing, but instead they made the theme about family and surrounding around your grandma. And you couldn't help but not want to call your grandma right afterwards. And what they made fun about it, and I don't want to say comedy, but they showed the brightness and a moody subject matter, were the characters. They made sure to in the character interactions. Because the overall structure and the storyline we all knew was going to be sad as well. And that's a great way to kind of balance your writing out too. We don't want to get too far into writing.
Yeah, and I think I would check the time. I think we should probably. We said we were going to do some questions. If anyone has questions, and maybe some pitches. So does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, we can take. Actually, in the back.
What I was going to say, you already, it was kind of to enhance what you were saying, film to write on, so that it can appeal to international audience. For instance, my film this year was entitled The Game of Chess and the Human Brain. Now, I'm a chess player. Also
me too.
I might need a chess.
Yeah. I keep it's in my lobby, and then I also have one in my office too.
Well, I wrote a film on it, and what happened? I got sick over the years. I didn't know if I had a bad case of. I don't want to get any sickness, but the doctor it came out after a while that what I had was titled On the Side Chest. It began to
You're looking good.
It began to receive, well, some would say miraculously and everything. Doctors are astonished. However, I took up chess to revive myself and get back that mental factor, memory and all this kind of stuff. I began to look real old and all this kind of stuff. So next year I'm 50. And I'm looking good for my age. So the theme now is that I started to research about the brain. And I found a lot of fascinating things about chess going back in ancient times. And there's a whole fascinating topic of how they thought back then and decided to make a movie on it. So I come.
Sounds like a great idea, by the way.
Yeah, I come with my own crowd. The entire chess community knows me. They're really waiting on it on the big screens and everything. So this is why I'm here to get advice and everything, etc., etc. So that is a good idea for the gentleman here to follow. The chess community is connected internationally.
Mm-hmm.
I come not just to the local crowd, but the international crowd.
Yeah, again, subcultures, not to cut you off, but like, yeah, one of the things that I look for, people know like why they call me like, hey Alex, do you have any writers maybe in this? And I expand from there as I do one, grounded sci-fi, and then the other side, I like subculture dramedies. So like something like that is like a subculture of like, we know like street chess, like when I think of like in Central Park and in New York and all those chess tables there, or where you guys have them, and then the international community of it, like what's that subculture all about? That's cool.
But interesting enough, we are trying to launch that on the promenade. If you pass on the Brian Lara promenade, you see tennis pitch and chess playing. It's my club that's launching all of that.
Right.
And we on TV6 and etc. You know, so that is us launching that whole project. So it's like I said, it's an interesting topic to write on. I will encourage people to try and get topics, even chess or write about it. You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, what you're passionate about. And then also a character story of a connection of why you should be the one writing it or directing it, if that was your path in that. All of that right there is a perfect way to work around your IP that you're creating, your project. Yeah. Or no, actually, her, and then you, and then we'll get into some pitches. Yeah, I think we have enough time.
Whatever you want.
This is especially for Eric.
Yeah.
What made you pass on that director?
Don't hurt him. Come on, don't hurt him.
Oh, you're just twisting it.
In general.
So I met with her a couple times, and she directed a movie that I liked, but I just didn't love it. It was a feature film, and I liked it. I thought it was okay. I just didn't think I could go out and take that film and get her a job. But that happens a lot of time in representation, where we can only have a certain number of clients. I can only have 40 clients, or and so ultimately I had to decide. All right, this is the person I'm going to push, and I decided not to. And then look. Sometimes someone will go out and they'll just write a terrific script and they'll get it done. And that's what she did. She wrote a terrific script and got her movie made. But we only can go off the information that we have at the time.
Yeah.
And I just didn't love it.
Which leads me to the next question, which really is, what are some things that make you say, nope, next? What are some of the things that we should be aware of not to do in our application?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
It's a really good question. I'm just now thinking of in kind of a weird way of like all the things that I delete in my inbox every 4 hours. You want to go first?
Look,
this one? I just got overwhelmed in my head.
You need something, and I keep going back to being specific, right?
Yep.
And I think that you need to be kind of really know. Well, a couple things. Know your audience too. You can bring up chess and whatnot. And what if you did some research on him and found out that he liked chess, and you submit someone like that? That's interesting, right? And sometimes I think it's really important to go out and do your research beforehand and say, okay, who do I want to submit to? What type of representation? This company does all action movies, but I've got a drama. Like that's probably the wrong avenue to go. I do think doing your research on these companies and what you feel is a good fit. nowadays so much can be found online about every management company, every agency, and every individual person. And I think it's interesting if you're going to go attack the people that you feel will have similar interest to you or your project, or a company does that same thing. But when someone sends an email to me or a pitch to me, I just want to make sure it's professionally done. There's no typos. It follows a good format.
Not too long.
Not too
Don't
long.
wanna be too
You gotta
worried.
get it across pretty quickly. And I'm also intrigued by that person. And again, that goes down to being specific, of really kind of be specific on who you are, what your project is, and what you want from me. I'm looking for a representation. I think this project can be, I think this is an independent film. I'm really excited about it, whatever it is, but be specific to what you want. And I think, but yeah, you start sending stuff with typos and grammar stuff for me. I can't do it.
And also, well, you're all English speaking, so I guess that doesn't help. But I mean, I've even had people that aren't English speaking, and they'll even say, but English isn't my first language. But if you're saying it at the beginning as disclaimer, I give you credit for that. Of like, all right, no problem. I don't know every language either. Not being wordy. Yeah, again with the whole research thing.
Short and sweet.
Yeah, short and
make
sweet.
it short and sweet.
If you do your research.
Too long, I'm gonna stop reading.
Yeah, if you do your research and you like, God, I don't have like a connection to that person, but I found their email or something. At least take the second to be like, hey, I noticed. Yeah, you have this movie, or like I'm a big fan of your client does this, and I've been really trying to go almost in the same path, but with my own taste as well. Then I respect him, like, oh, okay, well, I do really well with that client, so I'd love to have another one that's kind of like that as well.
I think that's an excellent point. If you look at a client that I represent, or a movie that we've made, and say, yeah, I really enjoyed this thing that you did, and I have something that I feel it could be similar to that. I think that's always good. But I think one of the bigger mistakes is it's
a really good question.
Is maybe trying to give too much information, where you want to be very specific, short and sweet, and here's who I am, and here's why you should take a chance on me.
One last thing, and then I think I have to go to him. I would suggest don't attach your script right away. Just kind of talk about what it's about, and say and in the end, if you would be interested in reading it, happy to send.
That's a good point.
Because then it sounds like you're shoving it at us, and it's a lot.
Even more than that, it's also a legal thing, because I can't take a script without sending someone a release form. So if you say I want to send the script to your company, I've got to have someone send you a release form for you, then send it back to me. So
that's why as reps we're the middle people that we can go to the studios, because we don't have to send them release forms all the time when we're sending stuff, unless it's something a lot more private, but that's rare, very rare. I think probably.
A little tack on to that. Is there any particular kind of wording you would recommend for a prospecting letter to you guys?
Sure.
Yeah.
You want me to take that?
Yeah. And one more question.
Then we maybe just push it. Yeah. I like it. Short and sweet. Hey Eric, I really liked your series Ozark. I have a brand new project, always brand new. I don't care if you've sitting on it for 10 years, always brand new. I don't want to read your old stuff, right?
I always tell clients and writers, don't put the date on the title page.
Never on your script. Yeah, don't put the date.
You can library it how you want, and I still library it in every client's files, their drafts, but when I send it out, I never put the draft date on there. I want it to make it sound like it was just yesterday.
Yeah. I have a brand new script I'm really excited about.
It's like having an expiration date on a piece of food, and you're like, oh, this is like 4 weeks old. I'm not gonna have this. Why hasn't it been sold yet?
Think Ex Machina in think Ex Machina in tone. It is, and then that's your log line. And then
a little bit about yourself.
I could also sometimes, if you right after the log line, if you do a very brief synopsis, and I'm talking about a paragraph, right? Yeah. And then after that, a little bit about you. But that's what I want, And I always, I think that's right. That's what I look for.
Yeah, literally, you should just go on a Word doc. Because when you make an email, you don't know how many pages there really is, and you should be like, all right, is it only a half a page? Right. Good. Any more than that, it better be super stellar to grab our attention. I think you have one more question.
I know you guys, in terms of genre, if you were writing drama, stick to drama, especially being a new writer. What if you write different genres, but in each genre you have the same theme?
That's
Yeah,
Great question.
you just want to keep it in the same kind of wheelhouse. There needs some connective tissue to it all, right? And I think as long as you have that, look, if you want to write horror and then you do a comedy next, I think it's going to be a problem, right? But if there's some connective tissue that is, I write in this type of theme, but yeah, so it's okay, but just make sure that it is, something kind of
Yeah,
connects
like
the two.
revenge is always my. Here's a good example. Quentin Tarantino. He's done modern day stuff, westerns and period, but it always kind of has the same theme to it. It's always kind of the same character. So that's a good way of somewhat jumping around. But you have to be very bold about that. They definitely need to see that. And you need to remember that, yeah.
So I think I know some people did some pitches in the previous panel.
With Arby and Eric.
But I think what we wanted to do is maybe hear a couple pitches so we can kind of get an idea of if you're kind of tossing the right stuff out to us, and maybe some TV might be.
Yeah, so we can start off with and remember, we'll have roundtables as well. So anyone that doesn't get a chance to pitch or whatnot, you'll have a lot more opportunity in these roundtables tomorrow. So don't worry, we won't let you go. So yeah, let's do about two and two. We'll start off with TV. Is anyone brave enough? Soul?
Nobody have TV.
TV?
All right.
Hi.
Hi.
Oh,
Okay. What?
Yeah, go ahead.
Whatever you want.
Okay.
Hey,
Is that,
it's your world.
You already said it.
okay. I'm Kathy.
I'm off. Thanks. Go ahead,
Okay.
please. Sorry about that.
So I'm working on a TV comedy. It's about really uber macho Caribbean guy who marries a feminist. And throughout the course of the series, they have to learn how to get along and make their marriage work. There's a lot of love in the marriage, but the clashes that they each have gender biases and completely different ways of dealing with them. And that's the pitch for the series. So in the pilot episode, what happens was an example of how we're going to explore this comedy and the themes. There's a problem in their new house, and the really macho guy, his name is Dan, and he has to, the problem is that there's a pest infestation. So his wife is out to work, he's out of work. Mm-hmm. And as the macho man, he's like, I'm going to take care of this pest problem. His wife trusts him to handle it. He tries all sorts of really extreme things to get rid of this pest problem and can't. But he refuses to do the one thing which his wife wants him to do, which is to call the exterminators. Because in his mind, Macho Man Dan, should be able to solve this problem without having to call an exterminator, because he's decided that that's the worst way to go about it. Mm-hmm. So we see him do it's a cartoon, by the way.
Okay.
So we see him.
Say that in the beginning. Say that at the very
Should be in the
beginning.
beginning.
30 minutes, I'm assuming?
Yes, 30
Okay.
minutes, so 24 minutes.
Or I should say half hour. Yeah.
half hour.
Exactly. So we see him make homemade bombs. We see him make homemade traps with roti to draw the pests into these homemade traps. We see him call in a Google hippie spiritual pest control guru things. He tries all sorts of stuff except calling the exterminator, and in the end he has to call the exterminator, but he doesn't tell his wife. He hides the bill. Mm-hmm. And pretends that he did it himself, and then she finds it, but she doesn't reveal that she knows that he did the thing that he was supposed to do in the first place. And so each episode sort of looks at how they solve different problems together and what compromises they have to make around learning how to overcome their biases and become a more cooperative couple.
Okay.
Cool.
That's a pretty good pitch,
Yeah, it
actually.
wasn't bad. Yeah, it was good. I was able to paint it in my head. So yeah, to start off, I guess first critique, which is a really simple one, and what also helps out when you're submitting maybe a couple emails out to producers, managers, is you should write the title, and then in parentheses you should maybe write animated half hour, and then right away we're okay, I know the format, I know the title, now I'm hearing the log line.
And also, if there's another show you can kind of compare it to in terms of the tone.
Yeah.
Again, because my previous example, I don't know if it's really, really broad, or it's relationship, or I understand it's going to be relationship, but how broad is that humor? And I think comedy is especially important to say,
especially nowadays,
of what type of humor it is, and that's why you should compare it to another show. But I think that was a good pitch. And I think I just want to also know about how they individually as characters change, throughout the series.
It's supposed to showcase how somebody somewhat in their old school macho ways should be listening to somebody who's a feminist, and then vice versa as well. About how because nowadays what everyone's always trying to do is like, well, how do we bond that? We don't want to just placate one side because then they won't even watch it. We want to make it universal, because if it's TV, and I'm thinking as an executive, I want to get as many viewers as possible. You try to target one specific audience, but you want to get as many as possible. So showcasing that balance.
Yeah, but I think that's a good job, because I think you started with kind of here's what the series is, and then more specifically, here's what the pilot is, and then after that, you kind of went into episode to episode. We're going to talk about this. So I actually think that was a pretty good.
Yeah, I think you did a really good job. And then so probably if we were just talking about having a writer in your arsenal, and we're talking about the submission, so yeah, probably the log line, and then also with the tone comps as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but you had it in there. That was a great, perfect one-pager.
That's good.
Cool.
And real quick, before we do another one, one thing I meant to mention beforehand is page count too. When you're writing your scripts, because we talked about this, is that remember what the goal of your pilot or your feature is. It is not the shooting draft. It is what we call the spec sales tool. It is the tool that you're going to send to people like me, or that I'm then going to send to actors, to agents, to studio executives, and so I like them to be lean and mean. If you send me a 150-page script, I'm going to say, I'm not going to read it until you cut it down. That's just the reality, because it's your sales tool. So for features, you should be in the 100, 110 range, somewhere in there.
Even if indies, they're getting shorter and shorter to 90.
Absolutely. And again, just remember, you can always add stuff up, in it when you're shooting and all that, and you can add more of your detail. But as the sales tool, lean and mean. So 100, 110, and I would say in features, pilots, you want them 55 to 60 if it's an hour long, and then obviously
Yeah, and then half hour. It's 30 minutes to, if it's animated, I think it's 20 pages.
Just something like that. Yeah.
Something like that. It's been a while.
The mistake is people just sending them really, really long things.
Yeah. Think like an editor when you're writing, because you don't want to already have to chop off stuff or have somebody chop off that stuff that you already love. You want to be able to do it yourself.
And again, because of the question that you asked, what mistakes do people make, and then suddenly I get the script and it's 170 pages long, and I'm like, well, never mind. Because I know the structure's wrong.
Beach this weekend.
No, but it's that I also know the structure's wrong. So I look at it. What, they don't have.
It's all in the outline.
They don't have any grasp on
it's all
structure.
in the
So, okay. Someone else want to pitch?
Yeah. Great job. Yeah.
Sure.
I wanted to do a feature. Is that okay? Or?
Go ahead.
Yeah. Sure.
My first feature pitch.
All right.
Okay.
So
That's awesome.
So this story is about a sort of struggling silver-tongued hospital orderly from the wrong side of town, who steals this ultrasound machine to treat his estranged father, who's suffering from prostate cancer, and also has access to a small fortune. It's inspired by a true story that came out in the media here that sort of caught the attention of police and the media, because it was a massive machine, it was very expensive. And in the story, because of the hype and because of the value of the machine, in that ghetto community, in that favela, what you find is all the neighbors suspected something was going on, and they found out, and now he had to end up treating the people in the community with that machine for whatever unrelated problem they have, whether it be, they have problems with their wife, whether they have the cold. He started treating everybody, just to keep them quiet. And of course, eventually what happened, the police end up, it sort of mounts to the point where the police, his dad's health, and his feeling in the community. And what happened is that he ended up forming different types of connections from the same community he was trying to escape. And well, just to cut to the end, his dad died. But he formed new relationships in a community that he wanted to escape, while making back with his dad in a way. But at the same time, he grew. He sort of his motivation went from getting that small fortune to really, finding a new way to connect with the community.
I actually thought that was a pretty good pitch.
Yeah,
That's a fun story. I would always lead with inspired by a true story.
Yeah.
That always catches our attention a little more because, again, I built my business off of original ideas, but that said, people want to hear that it's based on something else or a true story, right? So, still always say inspired by a true story. I wasn't exactly sure on the tone of it. I couldn't tell if it was a straight drama, if how much comedy was in it. So use that comp of or even just say, this is a dramedy, this is a comedy, this is a drama with hints of comedy. Just something that I have a little more idea, because it sounds to me like that's kind of a fun story and what he's doing, but I wasn't exactly sure what the genre was. But overall, I actually like that because you kind of did talk about his initial motivation, but by the end how he changed, right? I think that's really important in a feature of talk about that arc.
And he didn't win, but he won something that's much bigger and universal to all of us.
So what is the tone of this? How much comedy is it versus not, or it could be straight drama? I'm not sure.
It's meant to be. Well, it's meant to be a comedy.
Okay.
It has this whole narrative and this whole, he has a hustle approach.
Uh-huh.
But the undertone is the relationship between him and his dad, repairing that. But their dialogue and his interaction with the community is all comedy.
Right.
Yeah,
I would
I
say,
could see that.
I don't really think of it in that way, but it has a dramatic undertone.
Right.
But on the surface of it, the dialogue is...
So just do a little research and try and figure out another movie that you could kind of compare that to.
Right.
Again, not the story or anything like that, because I think the story is
At
pretty
least,
neat,
yeah,
but just the tone.
tonally.
Just the tone, so I can get a really idea what that tone is. But
Sorry about that.
Okay.
And then also, if you're sending it off, make sure you said it was inspired by true stories. Was there like an article or something on it?
Yes, sir.
Because people love that stuff.
Anybody else knows that story? So it's not a true story. The story was about these two guys who stole this ultrasound machine. And that was in the news, and it got big. The minister was looking because it
Right.
cost $500,000.
Right.
And they found the two guys that stole it. And the funny part was that I don't know if it's true or not, the guys are probably in jail still. But one of the guys stole it because his excuse was that it was to really treat his mom who had cancer.
Again, yeah, that's great.
So it's an adaptation really, but
Just that article alone.
yeah.
you might be able to get away with inspired by true events.
Probably inspired by, but yeah, probably showing the article is still
but
okay.
the story and the characters
True-ish.
is it's unrelated. So nothing in that was from the actual article.
We'll pitch it like it's a true story. Then when someone says, "How true is it?" Well, not really. But you're already invested in it. You already bought it. So.
You bought it. I'm like, I hear a story. Yeah, you hear stories all the time. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, if you have good conviction, I mean, I literally pitched something and sold it. It was a podcast scripted series and made it sound like it was a true story. And everyone's like, "Oh my god, it's so great!" And they were getting into it, and they're like, "So was it based?" I'm like, "Oh no, it's just like a story I heard." I'm like, "I'm inspired." And it's like, "But you already said yes to it." So.
Just don't talk
but
to
if you have good conviction, people will believe it, and they don't always use that though. That's should we?
Yeah, good.
I have a question really before getting to the pitch.
No, okay.
I try to put skin into the game into my pitches, so I have a digital teaser video. Is that allowed in a pitch?
If it's something that is visually based, or it's a big location or stylized, then yeah, I guess so.
Well, it's kind of like Eric
You
said,
don't always need to.
I have a project dealing with like a zombie kind of scenario in Carnival. So a lot of people, when I pitched it, FilmTT sent me to LA a couple of years ago when I pitched it. They didn't know what Carnival was. So I came back and I did a little teaser video together. so they get a little feel of what it is.
Yeah, I say yes
Yeah.
all day. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to see the visual.
28 seconds. Can I just shoot you
well-
tomorrow?
Well, we'll do it
Maybe,
tomorrow. I
Yeah,
think-
tomorrow definitely. But yeah, if you're either you're emailing your idea or you're actually pitching it in a room, yeah, you probably want to have the presentation ready. You kind of start off with a little bit of like, this is what inspired me, but before I get too far into it, I'd like to show you a little something.
Here's a link to the a teaser, and then
Yeah.
get into it. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yes.
we have clients do that all the time. Whether they want to use a little bit of visual, and they'll start with a little bit of banter and talk about it, and then they'll even say like, I'm stopping my pitch for just a second so I can show you something that'll help out a lot more with what I'm going to tell you about. So yes, that's the answer.
And I have one that I just did. Can I just get the feedback from you all? All right?
Well, let's do that tomorrow.
Yeah,
I think we're
let's do it
going to do that tomorrow.
Another pitch. Without the video. Another project. Just to get feedback.
It's a brand new
Okay, it's a pitch. It's a pitch.
Okay. Great. Yeah. Oh, I got you.
Oh.
Sorry. I misunderstood. I got you.
Oh,
Go ahead.
Right.
Yeah.
So, it's an action movie called Back on Tuesday. A gang individuals are down on this lovely party to have them rob a number of banks on Carnival Tuesday, when most of the protective services are otherwise occupied in this adrenaline-fused Fast and Furious style adventure. One more time? Or?
No. I was
know we
kind of just
talked a
taking it.
little
Oh,
That was that. I was actually just trying to I was taking in this fun heist and seeing what it was. Yeah, you mean?
I'd like that. I feel like it's almost a little short.
Yeah, I think for your opener, if you were emailing it, that's a great log line, and you used a Fast and the Furious.
Right.
I think I would actually, instead of saying Fast and the Furious, or you would say what? I guess like if it takes place here, you'd say Fast and Furious 4 or 5 when they were in South America. But and also it feels a lot like a heist.
Yeah,
So like you might want to use another comp that like the Italian Job or something like that. Ocean's 11 meets this.
Right.
Meets Carnival, because that gives me a little bit more of an idea. And then you want something a little more in depth.
So open with that. Yeah.
But then more.
And then I think that you can then get into a little more of a. All right. So our lead character is this, blah, blah, and go in a little more in depth of who the lead character is.
Names. I don't think you can call a name, just who he is.
Right. Correct.
Right.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Cool. Good job. I think we can do.
Another question. Could you start a pitch with a question?
What kind of question? I don't know.
Well, I guess
Not a personal question, but towards the story. So the reader can get insight on or form.
if you're actually in a verbal pitch,
Yeah.
then yes, maybe you can. If you have your pitch set up that like you're kind of reading the room, or you're setting the table for the room by asking a statement question.
But
Like, hey, has anyone ever heard of this? Or like, did you know that
Yeah,
such and
but if
such
you're just
happened?
like emailing out to try and get
okay.
representation or whatever,
Yeah, don't do that.
I wouldn't start with the question.
All right, I think we can do one more, and then don't worry, we have roundtables tomorrow, so you guys will get your chances.
You know what? I'll do my story one time.
No, actually, we got, sorry, there are other people, sorry, yes.
I did this one in this morning, so if you want to hear him, it's fine.
Yeah, probably if there's somebody who hasn't had a chance to pitch at all. Yep. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay,
Hey,
well,
how are you?
I'm actually writing a novel, Caribbean sci-fi, and I want to translate it over into a film pitch, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my novel pitch is sort of a different format. So I'm gonna just try to do this.
The synopsis, yeah.
Okay, so this is Trinidad 2323, Trinidad 300 years in the future, and it's a murder mystery set in the Caribbean, 300 years in the future, basically. Your protagonist is a female police detective, and she's been framed for the murder of a female member of the musical underground in the future. So there'll be like future music, which is also Caribbean, right? Sort of synthesized music happening along the film, because I'm a musician, basically. So the female member of the musical underground is found murdered, mutilated, and marked with lasers in a bizarre ritualistic symbols from the past, sort of Da Vinci Code sort of thing. And basically the protagonist she has to investigate and solve the murder because she's been framed. right? And the antagonist is the head of the army. His son committed the murders, basically, right? That's basically the story.
I mean, yeah, I'd say you probably want to, I don't want to say condense it, but define the overall structure and the storyline a little bit sharper, but you are building a nice world for me that one, it's a cool that it's a new type of sci-fi location.
Yeah.
And always with music, that's always great too. I wouldn't go too in depth with the whole portion of the music. I'd just say like it's a pop star musician is found dead, I think, and that could take it from there.
So that the soundtrack would be future Caribbean.
Yeah, but at the beginning you don't need to say that right away. That's more.
Yeah, I think you need a little bit more concise of a log line and say, here's my log line. It's this exactly what it is, and then a little bit more into you can get a little more details. But I would start with a sharper log line of set here. Here's the genre based on my novel. Well, I guess and then a little bit have that concise log line, and then get about a half a paragraph more of deeper a description.
Yeah, I agree. All right, everyone. I think that concludes our seminar. But I hope you guys took some great notes from this and some ideas from it. And we'll take more questions afterwards, or if you see us around, and also at the round table. But yeah, these are all the things that you need to have once starting off at your professional career as a writer, and the things you need to have in your arsenal. And stay true to your voice and the things that you want to write. Don't write just what you see out there just because you think that's what sells.
Yeah, if you start chasing what's selling, by the time you finish it, they're on to the next. Yeah, the cycle has already changed.
Yeah, it consistently changes. I think that concludes.
Cool. That's it.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thank you, guys.